Welcome to Awaken Soul, a gateway to profound near-death experiences and spiritual revelations. Here, we share true stories of those who have glimpsed the afterlife, encountered divine beings like Jesus, Mother Mary, and the Supreme Creator, and returned transformed. Their journeys remind us that Earth is merely a training ground for the soul to grow in wisdom, compassion, and love. Beyond this 3D world lies our true home. Are you ready to awaken? And remember, subscribe now to watch authentic NDE videos every day and uncover the truth beyond this world.
I died to witness the final battle before Christ's return. Remarkable. Sarah Thompson considered herself remarkably unremarkable. At 38, she was a 5th grade teacher at Denver Elementary, a job she loved for its predictable chaos and the small, everyday victories of guiding young minds. Her life was a tapestry woven with the threads of routine, lesson planning, grading papers, parent-teacher conferences, and the endless cycle of laundry and grocery shopping. She was divorced, 5 years out from a marriage that had quietly dissolved like sugar in water, leaving behind a residue of disappointment, but no bitter aftertaste. Her ex-husband, Mark, was a decent man, just unsuited to her, or she to him. They shared custody of their daughter, Lily, a bright, inquisitive 8-year-old who was the center of Sarah's world. Denver, with its backdrop of the majestic Rockies, felt both expansive and grounding. Sarah loved the city's vibrant art scene, the easy access to hiking trails, and the general sense of optimism that permeated the air. But lately, a subtle unease had begun to creep into her awareness. It wasn't anything specific, more a collection of small anxieties that accumulated like dust bunnies under the furniture of her mind. The news was a constant barrage of negativity, escalating tensions between global superpowers, increasingly frequent and severe weather events, wildfires raging across the West, hurricanes battering the coasts, and a general sense that the planet was groaning under the weight of human activity. There were protests in the streets, fueled by political polarization and economic inequality. People seemed angrier, more divided, less willing to listen to each other. Sarah wasn't a political person, nor was she particularly religious. She'd been raised Methodist, but her faith had faded over the years, replaced by a vague sense of spirituality, a belief in something larger than herself, but nothing she could define or articulate. She wasn't looking for signs or portents, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. One Tuesday evening, after a particularly exhausting day at school, Sarah was driving Lily home from soccer practice. Lily was chattering excitedly about a game she'd won, her voice a bright counterpoint to the growing darkness outside. Sarah smiled, listening to her daughter's animated recounting of the goals and saves, but her mind was elsewhere. She was thinking about the bills piling up on her kitchen counter, the upcoming parent-teacher conferences, and the nagging feeling that she was somehow failing to prepare Lily for a world that felt increasingly uncertain. As she approached a busy intersection, the light turned yellow. Sarah hesitated for a split second, her foot hovering between the brake and the accelerator. It was a moment of indecision, a brief lapse in judgment that would alter the course of her life forever. A truck, speeding through the intersection, slammed into the driver's side of her car. The world exploded in a cacophony of screeching metal, shattering glass, and a blinding flash of pain. Then, silence. The first sensation was not pain, but a curious absence of it. Sarah felt weightless, detached, as if she were floating above the wreckage of her car. She looked down and saw her own body, slumped and broken, amidst the twisted metal and shattered glass. She saw Lily, miraculously unharmed, being pulled from the passenger seat by a frantic bystander. She felt no fear, no panic. A profound sense of calm washed over her, a tranquility she had never experienced before. The sounds of the sirens, the shouts of the onlookers, the grinding of metal, all faded into a distant hum. She was aware of a presence beside her, a gentle, guiding force. She didn't see anyone, but she felt a warmth, a love that was both familiar and overwhelming. She began to move, not of her own volition, but drawn by an irresistible force. She was moving through a tunnel, a darkness that was not frightening, but rather comforting. like being enveloped in a soft, warm blanket. The darkness began to dissipate, replaced by a soft, radiant light at the end of the tunnel. The light grew brighter, more intense, yet it didn't hurt her eyes. It was a light unlike anything she had ever seen, a light that seemed to emanate from within, a light that was both light and love. The sense of peace intensified, becoming almost unbearable in its beauty. All her earthly concerns, her worries about bills, her anxieties about Lily, her regrets about her failed marriage, all vanished completely. She felt whole, complete, loved in a way that transcended human understanding. She knew with absolute certainty that she was going home. The light embraced her fully, and Sarah found herself in a realm that defied description. It wasn't a place with physical dimensions, not in the way she understood the world. It was more a state of being, a dimension of pure energy and consciousness. Colors existed that she had never seen before, vibrant and alive, resonating with an inner light. Sounds were not heard but felt, harmonies that vibrated deep within her soul. She was not alone. She saw figures, shimmering and radiant, beings of light that emanated love and compassion. She recognized some of them. Her grandmother, who had died when Sarah was a teenager, was there. Her eyes filled with the same warmth and affection she remembered. Her childhood best friend, Michael, who had been killed in a motorcycle accident years ago, greeted her with a smile that lit up the entire realm. Even her beloved golden retriever, Max, who had passed away a few years earlier, bounded towards her, tail wagging furiously. These encounters were not filled with words, but with pure understanding. Thoughts, emotions, and memories flowed between them effortlessly, a seamless exchange of love and recognition. She felt a sense of belonging, of connection, that she had never fully experienced on Earth. She realized that she was not separate from them, that they were all part of a larger whole, a universal consciousness. Then a figure approached her, radiating a light that was even more intense than the others. This being didn't have a defined form, but Sarah felt a presence of immense wisdom, compassion, and authority. This was her guide, a being tasked with helping her understand what she was about to experience. The guide communicated with her, not with words, but with thoughts and images. It explained that Sarah had been brought to this realm for a specific purpose, to witness a vision, a glimpse of a potential future, a warning and a message of hope. The guide emphasized that this was not a prediction of inevitable events, but rather a depiction of the consequences of choices, both individual and collective. Sarah felt a mixture of awe and trepidation. She didn't understand why she had been chosen, but she trusted the guide's presence, the overwhelming sense of love and purpose that permeated this realm. She was ready to see what she was meant to see. The guide led Sarah to a vantage point, a place where she could observe the unfolding vision. It wasn't a physical location, but rather a shift in perspective, a broadening of her awareness. What she saw was not a literal battlefield with armies clashing, but something far more profound and disturbing. The earth appeared as a swirling vortex of energies, a chaotic mix of light and darkness. She saw vast landscapes ravaged by fire, floods, and earthquakes. Cities crumbled under the weight of social unrest and violence. She saw people consumed by fear, hatred, and despair, their faces contorted with anger and pain. It wasn't a war between nations, but a war within humanity itself. The battle was a manifestation of the collective consciousness, the culmination of all the negative emotions, the destructive thoughts, and the selfish actions that had accumulated over centuries. She saw the forces of greed and corruption, represented by dark, swirling clouds that choked the light. She saw the consequences of environmental destruction, manifested as poisoned rivers, barren lands, and a sky choked with pollution. She saw the suffering of the innocent, the victims of war, poverty, and injustice. But amidst the darkness, she also saw glimmers of light. She saw acts of kindness, compassion, and courage. She saw people reaching out to each other, offering help and support. She saw communities coming together to rebuild and heal. She saw the resilience of the human spirit, the unwavering hope that persisted even in the face of overwhelming despair. The return of Christ was not a physical appearance, but a shift in consciousness. It was represented by a growing intensity of light, a gradual awakening of love and understanding within the hearts of individuals. It was a realization of the interconnectedness of all things, a recognition of the divine spark within each person. The vision was not a static picture, but a dynamic flow of energies, constantly shifting and changing. It was a reminder that the future was not fixed, that it was being created in every moment by the choices and actions of humanity. The battle was not a predetermined event, but an ongoing struggle between the forces of light and darkness, between love and fear, within each individual and within the collective consciousness. It was a call to choose love, to choose compassion, to choose unity over division. It was up to them. It was up to everyone. As the vision faded, Sarah felt a profound sense of sadness, but also a renewed sense of hope. She understood that the darkness she had witnessed was not inevitable, that humanity had the power to choose a different path. The guide approached her again, its light radiating warmth and reassurance. It explained that Sarah's time in this realm was over, that she must return to her physical body. It emphasized that she had been shown this vision not to frighten her, but to empower her. The message she was given was not a set of specific instructions or predictions, but a simple, yet profound, affirmation of the power of love. The guide told her that the most important thing she could do was to cultivate love and compassion in her own life, to treat others with kindness and understanding, and to contribute to the well-being of her community. The guide emphasized that every act of kindness, every gesture of compassion, every choice made from love had a ripple effect, contributing to the collective consciousness and helping to shift the balance towards light. It was not about grand gestures or heroic deeds, but about the small, everyday choices that shaped the world. The return to her body was sudden and jarring. She felt a wrenching sensation, a pulling back into the physical realm, followed by an explosion of pain. She gasped for air, her lungs burning, her body aching. She was lying on a hospital bed, surrounded by beeping machines and the concerned faces of doctors and nurses. She heard a voice say, "She's awake. We have a pulse." She felt the pressure of an oxygen mask on her face, the sting of needles in her arm. The world seemed harsh and overwhelming after the ethereal beauty of the other side. The sounds were too loud, the lights too bright, the smells too pungent. The following days were a blur of medical tests, pain medication, and the slow, arduous process of physical recovery. Sarah's body had been severely injured in the accident, but miraculously, Lily had escaped with only minor cuts and bruises. This was the one thought that kept Sarah tethered to reality, a lifeline of love in a sea of confusion and trauma. The doctors explained the extent of her injuries: multiple fractures, internal bleeding, a severe concussion. They were amazed that she had survived, calling her recovery a miracle. But they attributed her accounts of the other side to hallucinations caused by the trauma, the medication, and the lack of oxygen to her brain. Dr. Emily Carter, a kind and empathetic neurologist, listened patiently to Sarah's descriptions of the tunnel of light, the deceased loved ones, the vision of the final battle, and the message of love. She offered a scientific explanation. Near-death experiences are often reported by patients who have suffered cardiac arrest or severe trauma. They're thought to be caused by a combination of factors, including oxygen deprivation, the release of endorphins, and the activation of certain areas of the brain. Sarah tried to explain that it wasn't a hallucination, that it felt more real than anything she had ever experienced. She described the overwhelming sense of peace, the unconditional love, the clarity of the message. But Dr. Carter, while sympathetic, remained skeptical. "It's understandable that you would want to find meaning in such a traumatic experience, Sarah," she said gently, "but it's important to focus on your physical recovery now." Her ex-husband, Mark, was equally dismissive. He visited her in the hospital, expressing relief that she was alive and that Lily was safe. But when Sarah tried to share her experience, he became uncomfortable, changing the subject or suggesting that she was still under the influence of the pain medication. "Sarah, you almost died," he said, his voice strained. "You need to rest and recover. Don't worry about visions and messages. Just focus on getting better." Her closest friend, Lisa, a practical, down-to-earth woman who worked as a librarian, listened more openly. But even Lisa, while supportive, couldn't fully grasp the magnitude of what Sarah had experienced. "It sounds amazing, Sarah," she said, "but it's hard to, believe. Maybe it was just a dream, a way for your brain to cope with the trauma." The isolation was crushing. Sarah felt like she was living in two worlds: the mundane reality of hospital routines, physical therapy, and the constant reminders of her near-death experience, and the vivid, unforgettable memory of the other side. She experienced flashbacks, triggered by seemingly random things: a bright light, a loud noise, a news report about a natural disaster. The images of the apocalyptic vision would flood her mind, causing panic attacks and a deep sense of unease. She struggled to sleep, plagued by nightmares that echoed the scenes of destruction and suffering she had witnessed. She felt disconnected from her previous life, her former concerns seeming trivial in comparison to the profound message she had received. She was caught between two worlds, unable to fully return to the old one, yet unable to fully integrate the new one into her daily existence. Desperate for understanding and validation, Sarah began to research near-death experiences. She devoured books on the subject, scoured the internet for articles and personal accounts, and watched documentaries about people who had had similar experiences. She discovered that NDEs were far more common than she had realized, and that many of the elements she had experienced, the out-of-body sensation, the tunnel of light, the encounters with deceased loved ones, the sense of peace and love, were reported by countless others. She found online forums and support groups dedicated to NDE experiencers. She connected with people from all walks of life, from different backgrounds and belief systems, who had had similar journeys to the other side. They shared their stories, their struggles, and their insights. She met a woman online, a retired nurse named Margaret, who had had a near-death experience during heart surgery. Margaret described a vision of a future Earth, not apocalyptic, but transformed by a collective awakening of consciousness. She spoke of a world where love, compassion, and cooperation had replaced greed, hatred, and division. This resonated deeply with Sarah's own experience. While Margaret's vision was more optimistic than the final battle Sarah had witnessed, it reinforced the underlying message that humanity had a choice, that the future was not predetermined, and that love was the key to transformation. Sarah also explored different spiritual paths. She visited a Unitarian Universalist church, drawn to its inclusive philosophy and its emphasis on social justice. She attended a meditation group, learning techniques to calm her mind and connect with her inner self. She read books on Eastern spirituality, exploring concepts of interconnectedness and the nature of consciousness. She didn't abandon her Christian upbringing entirely, but she found that her understanding of faith had broadened and deepened. She no longer saw God as a distant, judgmental figure, but as a loving presence, a universal force that connected all beings. Through these explorations, Sarah began to find a sense of peace and belonging. She realized that she was not alone, that her experience was part of a larger phenomenon, a growing awareness of the spiritual dimension of human existence. She began to understand that her NDE was not just a personal experience, but a call to action, a challenge to live a more meaningful and purposeful life. The integration of her NDE into her daily life was a gradual, ongoing process. It wasn't a sudden transformation, but a series of small shifts in her perspective, her priorities, and her actions. She returned to teaching, but her approach was different. She was more patient, more compassionate, more attuned to the individual needs of her students. She incorporated lessons on empathy, kindness, and conflict resolution into her curriculum. She created a classroom environment that fostered cooperation and mutual respect. She became more involved in her community. She volunteered at a local food bank, distributing meals to the homeless and needy. She joined an environmental group, advocating for sustainable practices and raising awareness about climate change. She participated in peaceful protests, speaking out against injustice and inequality. Her relationship with Lily deepened. She made a conscious effort to be more present, more attentive, more loving. She shared her story with Lily, not the details of the apocalyptic vision, but the core message of love and interconnectedness. She taught Lily the importance of kindness, compassion, and forgiveness. She even found a way to reconnect with Mark, her ex-husband. She no longer harbored any resentment or bitterness towards him. She understood that their marriage had simply run its course, that they were both on different paths. She approached him with a spirit of forgiveness and understanding, and they were able to establish a more amicable co-parenting relationship. She never fully lost the memory of the final battle vision, but it no longer haunted her in the same way. She understood that it was a potential future, not an inevitable one. She saw it as a warning, a call to action, a reminder of the importance of choosing love over fear, unity over division. She found a way to share her message, not by preaching or proselytizing, but by living it. She became a beacon of kindness and compassion in her small corner of the world. She inspired others with her quiet strength, her unwavering optimism, and her deep commitment to making a difference. The final scene takes place several years later. Sarah is walking in a park with Lily, now a teenager. They are watching children play, laughing and running freely. The sun is shining, the birds are singing, and a gentle breeze rustles the leaves of the trees. Lily turns to Sarah and says, "Mom, do you ever think about, the end of the world?" Sarah smiles and puts her arm around her daughter. "I used to, honey," she says, "but now I think more about the beginning. Every day is a new beginning, a chance to make a difference, a chance to choose love. And that's all that really matters." She looks out at the children playing, at the beauty of the natural world, at the vast expanse of the sky above. She feels a deep sense of peace, a profound gratitude for the gift of life, and a renewed commitment to living each day with purpose and intention. She is no longer afraid of the future. She knows that the power to create a better world lies within each of us, in every act of kindness, in every choice made from love. And that, she realizes, is the most powerful message of all.